Today feels like sort of a turning point for these oil prices. Just broad strokes here. How big of an impact does the situation in Russia stand to have on what people like Jen and I might see at the gas pump?
Well, it'll have an enormous impact. It already is. Even before this war kicked off, Biden was facing a real problem with gasoline prices, which were climbing back to levels we hadn't seen really since 2014, which was the first time oil crashed from $100 a barrel. In theory, the share of American wallets that's going on energy isn't something we should be concerned about. Right now it's below 4%. That's nothing like the 6% we saw in 2008, the 8% we saw at the end of the 1970s. But the problem is that the gasoline price is the one price that pretty much every American knows. They see it all the time when they're driving, and it's been moving up so rapidly that even if the level is not quite at crisis levels, the sheer momentum will unnerve people.
And Jack, I mean, considering what Liam just outlined there for us, what is Biden's pitch then to Americans, especially considering, I mean, his poll numbers right now, 40% approval rating, so he does have some convincing to do.
Yeah, well, this is one reason why what we're seeing in Ukraine makes this a very difficult speech for the people around the president to even write, because he wanted to focus on his economic agenda and focus on his proposals to address the issues with the supply chain, to address inflation. He was planning, according to senior administration officials, to get into deficit reduction and obviously energy prices as part of the inflation conversation. This makes it a bit more difficult, and we've already discussed the issues regarding whether there's a push to impose more energy-related sanctions in Russia. But the challenge of this speech is going to be, how does he address, as officials have said he's going to have to, how does he address everything we've seen in foreign policy, but still make a coherent point regarding what he wants Congress to work with him on domestic, the domestic economic agenda. It's going to be a challenge for him to turn that into something that can pack a rhetorical punch. But yes, the short answer is he wants to address gas prices, inflation, everything that people are feeling domestically. The question is how he crafts a speech that does that and touches on the foreign policy challenges we see.
And Jack, I know that you've covered, the collapse in Congress of Biden's climate spending package. But Liam, I want to get your thoughts on this. As we see this situation in Russia unfold and impact our gas prices here at home, is that going to be enough to move the needle towards clean energy? And is that something that maybe Biden could continue to push for?
I think in the near term, it's going to be very difficult for him because rising energy prices in the here and now are a very powerful argument against doing something like climate change that plays out over time and is abstract to a lot of people. I think what he will have to try to focus on are efforts to get the gasoline price down in fairly limited ways. I mean, they're obviously considering releasing more barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. That tends to have a temporary effect, but if you were to move to a point where, say, energy sanctions were imposed on Russia, it would be like, firing a water pistol at a house fire.
So then, Liam, how then does Biden focus on his green domestic agenda then? I mean, especially considering sort of what you just said, there's still some issues that he has here to make up for. But this is something that he's been touting for the past few months.
Well, I think what we've seen so far in the Biden administration is that the message around investing in green energy tends to morph over time. If you go back about a year, there was a very interesting moment where the message shifted a little from job creation to engaging in a race with China on technological leadership. So I would suspect that at least one of the levers he would pull is to recast this as a way of getting America away from dependence on regimes like Russia.